Chapter 1. They didn't scream at me. They didn't insult me out loud. They just quietly seated me beside the trash at my own sister's wedding and expected me to smile. I didn't argue. I didn't leave in tears. I carried a small silver gift, sat in silence, and walked away. What they didn't know was that the truth inside that room didn't need me to stay. My name is Arden Blake, and this is the story of how my family erased me for years and how one quiet moment finally let everything collapse on its own. I pulled off I-93 just after noon and followed the last stretch of country road toward the lake, the kind that narrows without warning and makes you slow down whether you want to or not. The trees were still holding on to late summer green, and the air smelled like pine and warm water. I had driven up from Manchester that morning with a travel mug of coffee I didn't finish and a knot in my stomach I couldn't name. The resort came into view like something from a brochure, glass walls catching the light white chairs lined up on a lawn that looked too perfect to be real. A row of cars sat on the gravel lot, SUVs and sedans with out-of-state plates, doors slamming, laughter drifting across the air like it belonged to someone else. I parked between a black Subaru and a rented luxury sedan, cut the engine, and sat for a second with my hands on the steering wheel. My name is Arden Blake. I am 38. I have a job in operations at a health software company back home, the kind of job that pays the mortgage and never makes anyone clap. I had taken one day off for this, one day for my sister's wedding. My younger sister, Sienna, was 33 and had built her whole life around being seen. She was the kind of person who could make a room tilt toward her without trying. She had worked in event marketing, then spun it into social media partnerships, then into a brand that was mostly her face and her opinions. My mother loved that. My father didn't know what to do with it, but he loved her anyway. Everyone did. I got out of the car and grabbed the small wrapped gift from the passenger seat. It was simple silver paper with a neat ribbon. It looked harmless. That was the point. As I walked toward the entrance, I heard music inside, not the ceremony music, yet just a sound check, a few bars of something soft and romantic that cut off mid-note. The lobby smelled like lilies and cleaning spray. There was a table set up for check-in near a wall of windows. A woman in a navy dress stood behind it with a clipboard and a headset. She looked up with a professional smile that hesitated for half a beat when she saw me, like her face had been trained to be pleasant, but her eyes had learned to read problems. "Hi, name, please." "Arden Blake," I said. Her pen paused. She scanned the page, then scanned it again as if I might have spelled myself wrong. "Okay," she said quietly. She glanced toward the ballroom doors, then back at me. Her name tag said Tessa Nguyen Wedding Planner. Her fingers tightened on the clipboard. I could see the small strain around her mouth as she made a decision that wasn't hers to make. "Right this way," she said. She didn't hand me a program. She didn't point me toward the seating chart like everyone else. Instead, she walked around the table and led me past the main doors, past the sign that had Sienna and her fiancé's names in elegant script. Past the open room, where white linens and candles were already glowing, where guests in pastel dresses and pressed suits were greeting each other with cheek kisses and laughter. We turned down a side hallway. The music was muffled here. The air changed. The floor was the same polished wood, but the hallway lights were brighter and colder. I saw a service door propped open at the far end. A metal cart sat near it, stacked with empty glassware. 2 large trash bins were tucked into an alcove like they belonged to the wall. Tessa stopped beside a small folding table pressed against the glass partition that looked into the ballroom. There was one chair, one place setting, a single cloth napkin folded like an afterthought. "This will be your seat," she said. I looked at it, then looked at her. For a moment I thought maybe this was temporary, like they were holding my spot until someone found a missing card. But there was a name card on the plate. Mine. Printed and placed. Planned. I let the silence stretch. Tessa did not meet my eyes. "Is there a mistake?" I asked. Her voice dropped. It was marked final by the bride. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't have to. I stared at the table, the chair, the trash bins close enough that I could smell the faint, sweet sour of something tossed earlier. I could hear the ballroom in waves, laughter swelling and falling, the clink of glass, someone calling Sienna's name like it was a blessing. Something in me should have broken. It didn't. I have spent most of my life learning how to make myself smaller without disappearing completely. I knew this feeling. Not the exact hallway, not the exact chair beside a trash bin, but the message underneath it. You can be here, but not really. You can watch, but you don't count. My throat tightened, not with shock, but with exhaustion, the kind that comes from recognizing a pattern you have been pretending isn't real. Tessa shifted her weight as if she wanted to say more. I could see it in her face, that flicker of discomfort people get when they are forced to be the delivery system for someone else's cruelty. "I'm sorry," she said. "It's okay," I told her. My voice sounded steady. It surprised me. I set my silver-wrapped gift on the edge of the table. I didn't sit down yet. I stood there and looked through the glass. Inside the ballroom, Sienna moved between clusters of guests like the center of gravity. Her dress was white and fitted her hair pinned back in a polished style that made her look both innocent and untouchable. My mother, Linda, hovered close, hands fluttering, adjusting a stray curl smoothing fabric that didn't need smoothing. My father, Grant, stood a few feet behind them in his suit shoulders, squared eyes scanning the room like he was searching for something safe to focus on. He did not look toward the hallway. Not once. I watched my mother laugh at something Sienna said. I watched my father nod along his smile, tight and careful. I watched my sister accept compliments, accept attention, accept everything like it had always been hers. I wasn't angry the way people expect you to be angry in stories like this. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't plotting with a grin. I felt hollow in a very specific way, like someone had finally put a label on the thing I had been carrying for years. I turned, and that was when I saw Sienna step out of the ballroom. She walked into the hallway with the ease of someone who believed the space belonged to her too. Her heels clicked against the floor. She smiled when she saw me, but it was the kind of smile you use when you are checking to see if a problem is going to stay quiet. "There you are," she said. I didn't answer. Her eyes flicked to the table, to the single chair, to the trash bins. She didn't flinch. She didn't look embarrassed. If anything, she looked satisfied, like the world had arranged itself correctly. "You found your seat," she said. "Is this what you wanted?" I asked. She shrugged one shoulder, lifting with practiced indifference. "Guess you don't count." She said it like it was a joke she expected me to take, like it was a truth she had been allowed to speak out loud for the first time. Behind her, the ballroom pulsed with warmth and light, a different universe separated by a pane of glass. I looked at her face, at the careful makeup, at the bright eyes that had never learned to doubt themselves. I thought about every time I had been told to be the bigger person, every time I had been asked to let things go, because family mattered. I thought about how family had always mattered most when it meant I had to swallow something. I held her gaze and said nothing. For a second, Sienna's expression shifted. Not guilt, not remorse. Something closer to irritation, like my silence wasn't playing the role she expected. "Are you going to make this a thing?" she asked. I could have. I could have raised my voice. I could have walked into the ballroom and demanded a place at a real table. I could have forced my parents to look at me. But I already knew what they would do. My mother would panic and try to smooth it over. My father would stand there trapped between the two of us, hoping the moment would pass. Someone would suggest we talk later. Someone would say it's her wedding. Someone would tell me not to ruin it. I was tired of being the only one asked to carry the weight of keeping things pleasant. I picked up my gift again. The ribbon slid against my palm. It felt heavier than it should have, not because of what was inside, but because of how long I had been holding it. "I'm not making anything," I said. I stepped past her. She turned as if she might call after me, but the music inside rose again and swallowed whatever she might have said. I walked down the hallway past the service door, past the carts and the bins, and kept walking until the lobby noise faded behind me. Outside, the air hit my face like a clean hand. I crossed the gravel lot with my heels crunching my dress, moving stiffly around my knees. No one stopped me. No one followed. I didn't see my mother's face in the doorway, confused and concerned. I didn't see my father hurrying after me, finally choosing a side. I saw nothing but the sun on the cars and the lake shining beyond the trees. I got into my car and shut the door. The world went quiet except for my own breathing. My phone buzzed once in my purse, a notification I didn't look at. I set the gift on the passenger seat and stared through the windshield at the line of trees. The music from the ballroom drifted out, faintly softened by distance, as if it belonged to a celebration happening in another life. I did not start the engine right away. I sat there with my hands in my lap, and one thought repeating itself, steady and plain. I didn't leave because I was furious. I left because I was done pretending this was new. I left because I had finally recognized what it meant to be placed to the side, and I was tired of making that feel normal. Chapter 2. That recognition did not start today. It had been building for years, quietly, the way water wears down stone when nobody is watching. I can trace it back to 2011, when I was still in my 20s, and Sienna was a teenager who knew how to turn a frown into an apology she never meant. My mother kept a little notebook in her kitchen drawer, a soft cover book with floral print that always smelled faintly like vanilla from the baking she pretended she still had time for. She called it her memory book. She said it was for important things, so she would not forget. One Sunday afternoon, I saw it open on the counter while she was on the phone. The page was filled with Sienna. First dance recital, first driving lesson, first job, first heartbreak, first time she hit 10,000 followers, then 50, then 100. I stood there and scanned for my name without meaning to, like you scan a room for a familiar face. It was not there. When my mother came back into the kitchen, I tapped the notebook with my fingertip and tried to sound light. "You keep a journal now," I said. She smiled like I had complimented her. "It helps me remember things," she said. "Sienna has so much going on." I waited for her to add something about me. She did not. I said I have things going on too. My mother blinked, then laughed softly, not unkind, but dismissive. "Arden, you are the easy one," she said. "You always have been. You do not need me keeping track of you." Easy one. It sounded like praise. It felt like a door closing. A few years later, when I got promoted at my first real job, the kind of promotion you earn by staying late and solving problems nobody wants, I drove down to my parents' house after work, still wearing my badge clipped to my blouse. My father was on the couch watching baseball, volume low. My mother was folding towels. I told them I got the senior title today. My father looked up and nodded. "That is great, kiddo," he said, then turned back to the screen. My mother smiled and said, "Good for you, honey." Then she asked if I had eaten yet because she had leftover chicken. An hour later, Sienna called and announced she had been offered a partnership deal with a local boutique and would get free clothes if she posted about them. My mother's hands flew to her mouth like she had just won the lottery. "Oh my gosh, Sienna," she said. "That is amazing. That is huge." My father muted the game and leaned forward like a real conversation was finally happening. "Tell me about it," he said. I sat at the table with my plate of chicken and listened to them celebrate a discount wardrobe like it was a career milestone. I remember staring at the napkin in my lap and thinking, so this is how it works. Some things count. Some people count. By 2016, Sienna had decided she was going to be someone. She said it out loud at Thanksgiving, the year she wore a fitted dress and a bright red lip like she was already being photographed. "I am not going to be stuck in some boring job," she said, twirling her fork. "I am going to build something. People are watching me." My mother beamed. My father smiled uncertainly. I said nothing because if I said what I thought, I would have been accused of being negative. After dinner, my mother pulled me into the kitchen while Sienna recorded a short video in the living room, talking to her phone like it was a person she respected. "Your sister has drive," my mother said, lowering her voice. "She is special. I said I work hard too." My mother sighed as if I was making it complicated. "Arden, you are independent," she said. "You will be fine no matter what. Sienna needs support. Independent." Another word that sounded like admiration and landed like abandonment. The worst part was that I believed it for a long time. I told myself I did not need anyone. I told myself I liked being the calm one. I told myself I was above the drama. But there is a difference between choosing to be self-sufficient and being trained to accept less. In 2018, when Sienna borrowed my car for a weekend trip and returned it with a dented bumper and a story that kept changing, I heard my mother on the phone telling our aunt that Sienna had been hit in a parking lot by some careless stranger. I walked into the living room and said, "That is not what happened." My mother's eyes flashed at me. "Not now, Arden," she whispered into the phone, then covered the receiver. "Do you want to embarrass her?" I said she should be embarrassed. She lied. My mother's face hardened. She made a slicing motion with her hand like she was cutting the air. "Let it go," she said. "It is not a big deal. It was not about the bumper. It was about the reflex. Protect her. Quiet you." Later that night, Sienna stood in the hallway outside my old bedroom and said thanks for not making a thing out of it. I said I did not say anything. She smiled, pleased with herself. "Right," she said. "That is why everyone likes you." I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands, feeling something sour rise in my chest. Everyone likes you. What she meant was everyone is comfortable with you because you do not disrupt the story. My career kept moving. I moved, too, from a smaller city apartment to a modest place outside Manchester, a mortgage I paid on my own. I worked operations at a health software company, managing timelines, fixing broken processes, keeping people from making expensive mistakes. It was steady work. It was invisible work. I was good at it. When I mentioned buying my house, my mother said, "That is nice, honey," then asked if I could help Sienna with her rent because she was between gigs. When I said no, my mother's voice went thin. "Arden, she is your sister," she said. "She is trying." I said I am trying too. My father spoke up from his chair, eyes still on the television. "It is only temporary," he said. "Just help her out." I looked at him and waited for him to look back. He did not. That was his way. Avoid eye contact, avoid conflict, pretend the tension would dissolve if nobody named it. I helped anyway. Not always with money, sometimes with time, with rides, with favors, with lies I told on her behalf. When my mother asked how Sienna could have 2 parking tickets in 1 week, I said maybe the meters were confusing. When my father asked why Sienna had dropped another class, I said she was focusing on her business. I told myself it was love. I told myself it was family. Then came 2022, the year Sienna started dating Daniel, and suddenly my mother was talking about weddings, like it was a project she had been waiting her whole life to manage. I heard the excitement in her voice when she called me, and I pictured her notebook already filling up with new entries, new milestones. "You are going to love Daniel," my mother said. "He is stable. He has a real career. He is good for her." I said, "What about being good for him?" My mother made a sound like I was being difficult. "Arden, stop," she said. "This is a happy thing." At Christmas that year, Sienna asked me to take pictures of her and Daniel by the tree. I did it framing them just right, adjusting the lighting, because I know how to make people look good even when nobody notices the work. When I handed her the phone back, she scrolled and frowned. "You cut off my shoes," she said. "I said you can see your face, the ring, the tree, everything." She rolled her eyes. "You do not get it," she said. "Details matter." I wanted to say you only think details matter when they are yours. Instead, I swallowed it like I always had. Somewhere in there between the notebook and the promotion and the dented bumper and the rent money and the perfect photos, I stopped thinking of myself as someone my family did not appreciate. I started thinking of myself as someone they did not even need to consider. It was not hatred. It was worse than that. It was absence. I remember the first time the thought landed fully sharp and simple. If I disappeared, would they notice right away, or would they just adjust the story and keep going? That thought did not make me cry. It made me quiet. Now in the driver's seat outside the resort, the gravel lot shimmering in the sun, I set the wrapped gift on the passenger seat and watched my own hands for a moment, as if they belonged to someone else. My phone buzzed again, a soft insistence from inside my purse. I did not reach for it. Through the windshield, the glass walls of the venue caught the light, and I could almost see my sister moving inside like a bright figure behind a screen. I let out a slow breath and stared ahead, feeling strangely calm, as if all the years of swallowing had finally left me with nothing to force down. Chapter 3. 3 weeks earlier, I was on my lunch break in downtown Boston, standing in line at a coffee shop near Post Office Square, trying to convince myself that I was too busy for family drama. My phone had been buzzing all morning with group texts about Flowers' seating charts and some argument about whether champagne was included in the bar package. I muted the thread and told myself I would look later. That was when I heard my name spoken carefully, like the person was not sure I would want to hear it. Arden Blake. I turned and saw a woman about my age, dark hair pulled into a low bun, a raincoat draped over one arm, even though it was not raining. Her eyes held that familiar mix of recognition and hesitation, like we had lived in the same orbit once and drifted apart for a reason. "Hi," she said. "I think we worked together, sort of. Not directly. I was on the events side with Sienna." My stomach tightened at my sister's name. "I remember you," I said, even though I only remembered her face in fragments, always near my sister, always slightly out of place. "You are Marisol, right?" She let out a breath like she had been holding it. "Yeah, Marisol Vega." She glanced at the menu board as if she might change her mind and walk away. "Can I buy you a coffee? I have been thinking about whether I should say something." I should have said no. I should have smiled politely and kept my life clean. Instead, I heard myself say yes, because some part of me had always known there were things everyone else saw that I pretended not to. We found a small table by the window. The city moved outside in steady streams, people with tote bags and earbuds and places to be. The normalness of it made what Marisol was about to say feel sharper. She wrapped both hands around her cup and looked at me straight on. "I am not trying to cause trouble," she said. "I quit that whole circle months ago, but when I saw the wedding posts, I thought of you. I thought you deserved to know what she has been saying." My mouth went dry. "What has she been saying?" I asked. Marisol's voice lowered without becoming dramatic. "That this is her smartest move," she said. "That Ethan is a sure thing, that he is stable and sweet, and he will sign whatever she puts in front of him if she smiles the right way. She jokes about it like it is a game." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline that would make it less real. None came. "Ethan," I repeated, "my sister's fiancé, the man I had met twice, polite, a little reserved, the kind of guy who listened more than he spoke." Marisol nodded. "She brags," she said, "about the house he wants to buy, about how his family has money but acts humble, about how she is going to be set up after the wedding. I heard her say she would never go back to being broke again, not after this." I felt something settle in my chest. It was not shock. It was recognition, like a door I had ignored was finally opened. "You have proof?" I asked, my voice quiet. Marisol hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. "I did not plan to keep any of it," she said. "But she sent a bunch of stuff to a group chat by accident once, thinking I was still in it. I took screenshots because I was angry. Then I kept them because I did not know what else to do." She slid the phone across the table, not like someone handing over a weapon, more like someone handing over something sharp and asking me to be careful. I did not scroll for long. I did not need to. The tone came through in a few lines, the casual certainty, the smugness, the way my sister treated another person's life like a prize she had earned by wanting it badly enough. I pushed the phone back. "I do not need to read all of it," I said. Marisol's shoulders dropped slightly, like she had been expecting me to demand more. "I am sorry," she said. "I know she is your sister." I watched a man outside jaywalk between cars and wondered what it would feel like to live with that kind of ease. "You are not telling me anything I did not already suspect," I said, and the truth of it surprised me. It is different hearing it out loud." Marisol leaned forward. "Are you going to tell him?" she asked. "Ethan." My first instinct was to say yes, to be the responsible adult to fix the disaster before it happened. Then my second instinct arrived, older and heavier, shaped by years of being punished for disrupting the story my family preferred. "If I tell him," I said slowly, "it becomes me again. The jealous sister. The bitter one. The one who cannot let Sienna have a moment." Marisol studied me like she was seeing the pattern too. "So you do nothing?" she asked. I looked at my hands on the table. The skin around my nails was dry from winter. My fingers were steady. "I do not know yet," I said. "But I am not going to run into a fire just to prove I tried." Marisol nodded once sharp. "I get that," she said. "I really do. I could not sit with it anymore." When we stood to leave, she touched my arm lightly. "Whatever you do," she said, "do not let her make you the villain. She is good at that." I walked back to my office with the city noise in my ears and a strange calm in my body, the kind that comes when the truth matches the shape of your worst memories. I saved the screenshots Marisol sent me later that afternoon. I did not forward them. I did not print them. I did not send them to my mother. I put them in a folder on my phone and left them there like a storm warning. That night, my sister called me while I was doing dishes. "Did you see the venue photos?" she asked, breathless with excitement. "It is going to look insane, like editorial." "It looks nice," I said. "I need you to be on time," she said. "Do not do your usual thing where you show up last minute." I almost laughed. I had never shown up late to anything in my life. "I will be there," I said. She paused as if listening for the subtext she always assumed existed. "Good," she said. "I want everything to be perfect." After I hung up, I stared at the dark window above my sink, my reflection faint and older than I felt. I thought about Ethan. I thought about how people like my sister collected the right kind of person the way they collected the right kind of handbag. I thought about how my mother would defend her even if it burned everyone else down. 2 days later, I got an email from my mother with the subject line, "Wedding Weekend Schedule." She had attached a spreadsheet and highlighted my arrival time in yellow like I was a vendor. I did not respond. A week after that, I met Ethan's mother for the first time, not because anyone invited me, but because she introduced herself at a small family dinner my mother insisted on hosting. Her name was Diane Cole, early 60s, composed, eyes sharp in a quiet way. She watched everyone more than she spoke. When my sister excused herself to take a call, Diane leaned slightly toward me. "You work in operations," she said. "Yes," I answered, surprised she knew. She gave a small smile. "That means you notice things other people miss," she said. "It is a useful skill." I did not know what to say to that. I just nodded. Later, when my sister returned bright and loud again, Diane's expression did not change, but her gaze stayed on her a second longer than polite. I filed it away with the other warnings. I did not know then that Diane was collecting her own evidence in her own way, not because she was dramatic, but because she had lived long enough to trust patterns. A stylist who complained too much, an accountant friend who mentioned irregular transfers, a casual comment my sister made in the wrong room, pieces that did not belong together until they did. Our evidence tracks were separate. Mine lived in a folder on my phone. Hers lived in her memory and a few quiet emails she never printed at home. Neither of us spoke to each other about it. We did not need to. The truth was moving on its own. By the time the wedding weekend arrived, I had made one decision. I would show up. I would not explode. I would not beg for a seat at a table that never truly held a place for me. I would give my sister exactly what she expected from me, my calm face, my polite silence. I wrapped the small silver box the night before I drove to Vermont. The ribbon was neat. The tag had my name written carefully, not to be sentimental, but to be undeniable. Now, sitting in my car outside the resort, I looked at that gift on the passenger seat and understood something with a clarity that felt almost gentle. The truth did not need me to be loud. It needed me to stop carrying it alone. I opened my door and stepped out into the sun. Gravel crunched under my heels. I walked toward the entrance, past the flowers, past the glass walls, past the warmth and music. And when I saw the gift table inside the ballroom through the open doors, I waited until the wedding planner was distracted, until guests were turned toward the front, until my sister was laughing for a camera. Then I placed the silver-wrapped box on the table right where hands would reach first. I did not linger. I did not look around for approval. I turned and walked out the same way I came, in my pulse, steady, my face calm, my body lighter than it had been in years. In the parking lot, I got into my car, shut the door, and started the engine. The music swelled behind the glass, bright and confident, as if nothing could possibly go wrong. Chapter 4. By the time I reached the highway, the resort was already gone behind a curtain of trees. The late afternoon light flashed between branches as I merged onto the road, and for a few miles my mind stayed stubbornly blank, like it had shut a door and refused to open it again. I kept both hands on the wheel. The air in the car smelled like the resort lobby lilies and sanitizer because I had walked through it and carried it with me. My phone lit up on the console, a missed call, then another. I did not look at the screen long enough to see the names. People always expect a moment right here, the moment where the main character regrets leaving where she turns around. I did not turn around. I drove north until the lake was out of sight, until the road signs stopped mentioning the resort town at all. I did not know exactly when the gift was opened. I only knew the schedule because my mother had sent it like a project plan and because my sister had talked about it for weeks as if opening gifts in front of everyone was part of her brand. I pictured it anyway. I pictured the ballroom with the glass wall, the rows of tables, the warm lighting that made everyone look kinder than they were. Later, when the story came back to me in pieces, it arrived like a collage. Text messages, voicemails, someone else's shaky breath, a sentence that landed too hard. I had to assemble it myself. The first piece came as I passed a line of tractor trailers and the cell signal steadied. A text from my mother appeared. "Where are you? Come back right now." Another text followed so fast it felt like panic. "What did you do?" I stared at the words at a red light in a small town, then turned my eyes back to the road when it went green. My hands did not shake. My mouth tasted like metal. A few minutes later, another message arrived, this one from my father. "Arden, please answer." I did not. I drove, and the phone kept buzzing, and the longer I let it buzz, the more the silence in my car felt like a decision I had made on purpose instead of something forced on me. When I finally stopped at a gas station and stepped out to fill the tank, the air was cooler. The sky had started to soften into evening. I could hear my own breathing over the hum of cars. My phone buzzed again, and this time it was a voicemail notification from an unknown number. I wiped my hands on my jeans and listened with the volume low. A woman's voice, controlled but tight. "Arden, this is Diane Cole, Ethan's mother. I do not know what you intended, but I want you to know I am grateful I did not have to be the one to do it in that room. Please call me when you can." I stood by the pump staring at the numbers ticking up. Grateful. That word did not belong in my family's language. It landed differently. I got back in my car and drove again, and the story filled in over the next hour. The way I heard it later, the ballroom had been glowing. Sienna had been floating. Ethan had been smiling with the careful politeness of a man trying to do everything right. My mother had been everywhere at once, fixing, adjusting, smoothing. My father had been hovering like he always did, present but not present. At some point, when dinner ended and the music softened, someone made the announcement about gifts. Sienna had insisted on it. She wanted the photos, she wanted the reactions, she wanted the moment where she looked adored from every angle. They gathered near the gift table, guests clustering in a loose half circle, phones already lifted. The photographer moved closer. The wedding planner, Tessa, stood near the edge, watching the timing like she was keeping a machine running. Sienna picked up boxes, laughed, read cards out loud. The room laughed with her. The laughter was easy because it was scripted. Then she reached for the silver-wrapped box. I did not see it, but I can picture it perfectly. her fingers sliding under the ribbon, her nails glossy, the paper tearing cleanly. The next part I know from Diane's voice when she called me again later, and I finally answered not right away but later when I had pulled into a rest stop and needed to hear one real person. When I called her back, she did not waste time. "It went quiet in a way I have never heard at a wedding," she said. "What happened?" I asked. "You know what happened," she replied, not unkind, just direct. "She opened it." I swallowed. "Diane, I did not want to be the one standing there," I said. "I did not want to be part of a scene." "You were not," she said. "You were a spark. That is all. The rest was already there." She told me Sienna had smiled as she lifted the lid like she expected jewelry, like she expected something that would look good in a photo. Instead, papers slid out. Not a dramatic avalanche, not a theatrical reveal, just a few pages of card and a printout that caught the light wrong as it fell. Someone bent to pick it up. Someone else read a line and froze. A murmur started, then stopped like the room itself had taken a breath and refused to let it out. Sienna's smile faltered. Ethan leaned in confused. He reached for the page and Sienna's hand snapped down too fast. "It is nothing," she said too brightly. Diane said she stepped forward then, not because she wanted attention, but because she could not stand watching her son be played in front of everyone. "I said give it to me," Diane told me. "I did not raise my voice. I did not have to." "What did she do?" I asked. Diane made a small sound, half laugh, half disgust. "She tried to turn it into a joke," she said. "She tried to make it sound like someone was jealous. She looked around for allies. She expected the room to back her up." It did not. Diane said she read enough to confirm what she already suspected: the tone, the intention, the way Sienna talked about Ethan like he was a strategy. Diane had her own folder, quiet emails notes from a friend who did financial work, a comment from a stylist who had been paid late and complained about it. Separate pieces that formed the same picture. "I told Ethan this was not new to me," Diane said. "I told him I had already spoken to counsel." That was when Ethan stopped looking confused and started looking tired. According to Diane, he did not yell. He did not swear. He did not make a speech. He looked at Sienna for a long moment, then reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a thin folder. He placed it on the gift table right beside the torn silver paper and the fallen pages. "I have documents prepared with counsel," he said. Diane repeated the words exactly as if she wanted them to stay clean, not turned into gossip. Sienna stared at the folder like it was a foreign object. "What is that?" she asked. Ethan's voice stayed low. "It is what I do when I realize I am about to sign my life away to someone who sees me as a transaction." Sienna's face changed, the confident brightness cracking. She tried to laugh again. "This is insane," she said. "This is my sister. Arden did this. She is bitter. She always has been." Diane said she watched Sienna's eyes flick toward my mother, waiting for the rescue. My mother did not move. She stood there with her hands pressed together, knuckles, white eyes darting across the room, like she was searching for an exit that did not exist. Someone lowered a phone. Another guest lowered theirs. A few people stepped back as if they did not want to be caught in the blast. Tessa, the wedding planner, went still, her headset forgotten. A server with a tray stopped mid-step and looked down at the floor like the ceiling might collapse. Then there was my father. Diane did not know him well, but she noticed him because he did what he always did. He went quiet. Not the calm quiet of a man choosing peace, the frozen quiet of a man who had avoided conflict for decades and had finally run out of places to hide. Sienna said, "Dad, say something." Diane told me my father did not speak right away. He stared at the gift table. He stared at Ethan. He stared at my mother. He stared at Sienna. Diane said it was like watching a man realize his silence had been a decision all along. When he finally spoke, it was not loud. "Sienna," he said, "stop." One word. It sounded like an ending. Sienna's eyes widened as if she had never heard the word directed at her. She tried again. "Arden is the problem," she said. She always makes things weird. She left because she wanted this." Diane said nobody answered, not even my mother. The room had shifted. The story Sienna usually used, the one where someone else was dramatic and she was misunderstood, did not stick. In the middle of it, a framed photo that had been propped on a stand near the gift table got knocked. Maybe by Sienna's hand, maybe by someone stepping back, maybe by accident. It tipped, hit the floor, and the glass cracked with a small, sharp sound that cut through the silence. Diane said no one bent to pick it up. It was not cruelty. It was something colder. It was the moment everyone recognized there was nothing left to save. I drove as Diane spoke, my eyes on the road, the lines of the highway stretching forward like a decision I could not undo. When she finished, she asked me softly, "Are you safe right now?" "Yes," I said. "You did not ruin anything," she told me. "You stopped pretending. There is a difference." After we hung up, I kept driving. The sky darkened. My phone buzzed again and again on the console. My mother, my father numbers. I did not recognize, probably guests who had found my contact through someone else. I watched the screen light up and go dark, light up, and go dark like a heartbeat that did not belong to me anymore. I did not answer. Chapter 5. The first night I drove until my eyes felt gritty and my shoulders ached from staying tight for too long. I checked into a plain roadside hotel in New Hampshire under a fake smile and a real name because I was not hiding from the world just from the noise. In the room, I kicked off my shoes, sat on the edge of the bed, and watched my phone light up again and again like it was trying to drag me back by the sleeve. There were voicemails from my mother, short and sharp at first. "Call me. Now." Then longer. "Arden, this is not funny. You embarrassed your sister. You embarrassed all of us." Then quieter as the night stretched. "Please, just talk to me." My father left 3 messages total. He never said much. "Please answer. I need to know you are okay. We have to figure this out." Sienna sent a string of texts that swung between rage and panic. "You are sick. You ruined my wedding. Everyone thinks I am a monster. You always hated me." Then, an hour later, "Please tell them it was a misunderstanding." I stared at that last one longer than the rest. It was the purest thing she had ever said to me. Not "please forgive me," not "please help me," "please fix my image." I set my phone face down on the nightstand and went into the bathroom to wash my face. The mirror showed a woman who looked composed, but there was a tightness around my eyes I had never noticed before, like I had spent years squinting through other people's expectations. I slept in fragments. Every time my phone vibrated, my body jolted not from fear, but from habit. The next morning, I drove back to Manchester and went to work like a person who had not watched her family detonate in a ballroom. That is what I do. I keep things running. I show up, I make sure deadlines are met and meetings stay on track. My coworkers asked how the wedding was. I said it was a long drive. Nobody pushed. At lunch, I checked my phone again. The group chat had exploded. My aunt had written a paragraph about family loyalty. My cousin had sent a link to a video someone posted online, shaky and distant, but clear enough to show Sienna's face and Ethan's stillness. Someone in the background said, "Oh my God," and then the sound cut off. Under the video, comments were already stacking up. People I did not know were arguing about whether Sienna deserved it, whether Ethan was weak, whether I was cruel. My name was not in it, but the story had already escaped my control. By the end of that week, Sienna's social media went quiet. Not the normal quiet of someone taking a break, but the kind of quiet that comes when brands start calling and you stop picking up. A friend of mine who worked in marketing texted me out of nowhere, "Is your sister okay? Her engagement deals are disappearing." I did not respond. Not because I did not care, but because I knew that if I spoke, I would get pulled back into the role my family had assigned me, the one who manages consequences for everyone else. My mother called every night. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she was angry, sometimes she tried to bargain. "If you just tell people it was not that bad," she said one evening, "we can move on." I held the phone away from my ear for a moment and stared at my kitchen wall at the small calendar hanging there with ordinary appointments written in black ink. "Move on," I repeated. "Yes," my mother said as if the word was a gift. "This has gone far enough." I wanted to say it went far enough years ago. I wanted to list everything: the notebook, the easy one, the independent one, the lies, the favors, the way my seat at my sister's wedding was beside the trash, like I was something that needed to be kept out of sight. I wanted to say it all and make her understand. Instead, I heard myself ask, "Why did you let her do that to me?" There was a pause, not long but telling. My mother's voice softened into something almost reasonable. "It was her day, Arden," she said. I did not want a scene. I felt something in me loosen, not like forgiveness, but like the final thread snapping. It was always about avoiding a scene, not about avoiding cruelty, not about protecting me, just about keeping things pretty. I said okay and ended the call. For 2 days after that, I kept drafting messages in my notes app, the kind you write when you are trying to explain yourself to people who have never listened. I typed sentences like, "I did not do this to her, she did this to herself." I typed, "I did not ruin anything, I stopped carrying it." I typed, "Please see me." Then I deleted them all. Every time I deleted a draft, my chest felt a little lighter, because the truth was, I did not want to explain anymore. Explanations are for people who are willing to hear them. My family had spent years hearing only what made them comfortable. A few weeks later, right after New Year, I booked a cabin in Mid-Coast, Maine for 1 week. Nothing fancy, just a small place near the water with a porch and a heater that sounded like it might give up at any moment. I took my laptop because I knew myself, but I also packed a book I had been meaning to read for years and never had. On the drive up, the phone calls started again. Sienna had unblocked me and was trying a new approach. "I just want to talk," she left in a voicemail, her voice strained. "You do not understand what you did to me." Then my mother, "Your sister is not eating. She is devastated. Are you proud of yourself?" Then my father, quiet as always. "Can we meet somewhere, kiddo? Just you and me." I pulled into a rest area and listened to his message twice. My fingers hovered over the callback button. There was a part of me that still wanted my father to step up to say the right words to choose me out loud, but I knew how that meeting would go. He would look down at his hands. He would say he wished things were different. He would ask me to keep the peace. He would go home and my mother would feel better because the system was functioning again. I put the phone back in my purse and kept driving. The cabin was exactly what the listing promised and nothing more. Weathered shingles, a narrow driveway, the sea visible through bare branches like a sheet of metal under a gray sky. The first morning I woke up before dawn because my body still expected stress. I made coffee in a little drip machine that sputtered like it was annoyed. I wrapped myself in a blanket and stepped onto the porch. The air was cold enough to sting my nose. The ocean moved in slow, steady breaths. There was no music, no laughter behind glass, no buzz of my phone, just wind and water and the faint cry of a gull. I sat there until the coffee cooled in my hands. I thought about the hallway at the resort. I thought about the words "you do not count." I thought about my father finally saying "stop too late" and still meaningful. I thought about Diane's voice controlled and sure telling me I did not ruin anything. And then I realized something that startled me with its simplicity. Silence had been used on me like a tool for years, not my silence theirs. The way they looked away, the way they changed the subject, the way they celebrated my sister and treated my life like background noise. Now my silence was different. It was mine. It was not punishment. It was not weakness. It was a boundary. On the 3rd day in Maine, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Ethan. I do not know if you will ever want to talk. I just wanted to say thank you for not letting me marry a lie." I stared at the message for a long time. I did not reply right away. I did not need to. Later that afternoon, I took a walk down to the rocky shore. The water was rough, pulling back and pushing forward like it could not decide what it wanted. I stood there with my hands in my coat pockets and felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not victory, not revenge, relief. That night, I called my mother. Not to argue, not to explain, just to say one thing. "I am okay," I told her. She started to cry immediately. "Arden, please come home," she said. "We can fix this. We can make it right." I looked at the dark window, my reflection faint again, but this time steadier. "I am home," I said, and I meant it. When I hung up, I did not feel guilty. I felt quiet. I do not know what happens to my sister long term. I do not know if my parents ever learn to see what they have done without turning it into another story where they are the victims. I know that for the first time in my life, I am not waiting for their understanding to begin living. Silence used to be the place they put me somewhere off to the side so the room could stay pleasant. Now it is the place I choose to stand so I can breathe. If you have ever been the one who kept swallowing just to keep the peace, if you have ever been told you were the easy one until you started to disappear, tell me. Have you ever had to walk away from your own family to finally keep yourself?